Hey guys, what's up? JK with Elevated Recovery here, and today we are going to be talking about hentai. Yes, hentai. For those of you who are unfamiliar with hentai, hentai is basically what I would call anime pornography. That's probably the easiest way for me to explain it. But anime is basically Japanese produced animation. It has a very, very distinct style. And hentai means pervert or perverted, whichever one it is. The point is, it is a specific genre of pornography. And the purpose of this video is to talk to people who are addicted to it, and for those of you who actually enjoy hentai but do it compulsively, to let you know that it is pornography and that there is a problem with it, in case you didn't believe that. Now, this might sound a little bit weird. People might go like, these are people who are watching cartoons. They are getting addicted to cartoons having sex. This must just be some fringe issue. It actually isn't a fringe issue. There are hundreds of thousands of men who use hentai on a regular basis. And I grew up as a huge anime fan. I still watch anime when I have free time. And one of the things I've noticed, one of my pet peeves when I do watch anime, is that a lot of the anime that's created today at some level has to be dumbed down, because the latest generation has used hentai so much and uses internet pornography so much that there needs to be an element of sex or porn or some sort of perversion in anime for it to be enjoyed by people. A lot of older people who enjoy anime and a lot of people who enjoy more classic anime, they really are confused when they start watching a new series and they find out that there's just so much sex in it. They're like, what's the point of this? Well, it's to satisfy the fan base that watches and uses hentai. You need that. And maybe to another extent or to a certain degree, they need to produce anime like that so that there can be a hentai spin-off. And maybe that makes it more popular. I don't know. You guys can enlighten me in the comments. It's a big issue. And I know there's a lot of arguments that guys are going to give. Like, guys are going to say, well, you know what? It's art. It's very artistic. And there are a lot of guys who enjoy anime, who read manga, and they perhaps feel that they are connoisseurs of hentai. They feel it's big enough that men enjoy it to the point that they know who the artists are. They understand their styles. They can compare the different styles of art and perversion. The problem, and if that's your interest, that's cool. The problem starts when you become a compulsive hentai user, because this is going to affect your brain just as pornography does. But it is my opinion, I'm a professional sex and porn addiction recovery coach. It's my opinion that hentai actually does more damage than regular pornography. And I'm going to break that down for you guys. I think there's several reasons why it is incredibly worse than pornography. The first reason is that in hentai, females are objects. And when I say they are objects, I mean they are literally objects for the purpose of sex. They may have a role in the plot, but at some point you are guaranteed that they're going to become completely objectified. And you might be like, well, what's wrong with that? Hentai is full of exaggerated physiques, things that really don't exist in nature. You see gigantic penises. There are gigantic body parts that just have no basis in reality. What is happening is that men who watch hentai, who use hentai, and masturbate to it and get to orgasm with it, are conditioning themselves to get aroused by things like that. Now, it's one thing to be aroused by sex between two human beings in pornography with human actors, as unrealistic as it might be. But it's another thing to get aroused by things that actually don't exist in nature at all. Your reprogramming your arousal template to enjoy these things. And first of all, you're seeing women as objects. Next, you are getting turned on by exaggerated physiques that you're not going to find anywhere in nature. The next thing is impossible sexual acts. Now what this is because it's characters that are actually being drawn, there's actually a limited space for creating anything you want. So a lot of the sexual acts that are depicted in hentai are just unrealistic. The human body is not meant to expand or contort or to do any of those things. But these are normal things, and of course, for each of those acts that cannot exist in real life, there is a niche in hentai for satisfying a specific person's craving for that unrealistic act. The next is there's a lot of abuse and there's a lot of bestiality or bestiality, however you pronounce it. Sex with animals or sex with therianthropes. And therianthropes are basically animals that are in the form of human beings, like dogs in the form of human beings or whatever in the forms of human beings. There's a lot of that there. Again, you're reprogramming yourself to actually enjoy those acts. There's a lot of abuse, and it's extreme abuse in many cases when you're watching hentai, when you're using hentai. One of the worst parts of hentai, I would say, would be the sheer amount of child pornography and incest that goes on in there. It is graphic, and every single person who uses hentai to orgasm has come across this or has used this on their own. People might be, well, it's not a big deal because it's something that's drawn. It's not real, it's just a fantasy. There's no difference between reading about something like that and actually looking at it being drawn. But here's the thing that any anime fan would know. One of the reasons that we actually enjoy anime is a lot of times compared to Western animation, the plots are much better, they're a lot more creative, and they're a lot more prolific in producing their material, whether it's getting it from manga to anime and from anime to hentai for those who use that. Because they're so great at plots, when you take something like child abuse or incest, it's not just going to be something that happens. It's usually going to be something that actually has a plot. And what's happening here is that you have kids, because a lot of parents have no idea what hentai is, you have kids who are using the plots of hentai to groom other kids to be sexually abused. So if you watch or you read something that involves an older adolescent grooming a younger child to be sexually abused, then that child has the capability of doing that in real life. And in case you're wondering, like, does that actually happen? It actually does happen. Speak to any therapist that specializes in sexually compulsive disorders among adolescents and teenagers. So this is something that's a huge problem. Again, my point with this is that you are conditioning your mind, you are conditioning your brain to get turned on by these things. Now, your final excuse would probably be, you know what? I would never do any of these things in real life. Let's put aside you're doing it in real life for a second. Let's talk about what it's doing to you in real life right now. One of the first things that's happening is that a lot of guys who have watched pornography to the point that they're absolutely desensitized, they've watched everything. They've watched all kinds of gore. They're not really affected by anything. Like, if they were to see someone get their brains blown out on the street, they'll just like chuckle and move on because you're completely desensitized. Remember, one of the things that pornography does is that it fuses the parts of your brain that process violence and that deal with arousal. It fuses them together, especially when you start watching the type of pornography that's out there today, which is very violent pornography. What's happening is that you've watched all this stuff and you're completely desensitized. What's the next thing you can go to that a human being cannot provide? You're going to go to drawings, to illustrations, and these illustrations are going to satisfy your your wildest fantasies, because they are all fantasy. A lot of things that cannot happen in real life. But the reality is that you've progressed past the point of having sex with real women. You know, there's this, what is it called? This group of men in Japan, what they call them, herbivores. Basically young men who have no interest in sex, who can't get it up, who have no interest in meeting human women. The funny thing, when I first heard about that, I'm like, why is no one talking about their hentai use? I'm sure there are a lot of other cultural factors and societal factors that are occurring in Japan that's contributing to what's happening with these men. But at the same time, no one has curiously mentioned the effect hentai has on this. Your brain is being rewired, and it's being rewired in a way that is going to make it a lot tougher for you when you get into recovery. You're also flirting and playing on the line of things that are illegal. When you view child abuse or incest, even if it's an illustration, sure, you can argue as much as you want that there's nothing wrong with that. But there really isn't any clear law that says that it's legal. So that's something that you might want to keep in mind while you're using hentai. The final thing about hentai is that it trains you to have zero compassion for another human being. You have no empathy. You have no feeling for another human being. The reason why is you are viewing an illustration. Why should you have any sort of compassion when you look at an illustration? As we grow older, we get desensitized to a lot of things. A lot of those things at a certain point are your choice. See, if you're reading a storybook to a child that's, let's say, 3 or 4 years old, and they see someone suffering or going through pain in a picture, a lot of times it's a natural human state to feel compassion. Why is this person suffering, mommy? Why are they going through this problem? Like, I feel sad. And the mother explains that this is not a real human being. This is actually an illustration. That's the innocence. That's the kindergarten of our compassion. But when we become adults and we purposely expose ourselves to material like this, we become completely desensitized to some of the worst things that are happening. I'll give you another example. When an Air Force pilot is being trained, he's trained in a simulator. This simulator is not real, but what it does is that it's replicating situations that could happen to him in a real dogfight. He's training his instincts to be able to handle those situations. So he's rewiring his brain to be able to respond quicker, to react to multiple scenarios. It's the same thing when you expose yourself to illustrations that are showing you certain sexual acts, whether they are real or not. You are reprogramming yourself to become the sort of person who does that in real life. That is a big problem in our society. And that big problem is the effect that pornography is having on young men and on women and on families and on our psyche. And it's very, very important that you're aware of things that I think a lot of us dismiss, like hentai. So I was all over the place in this, but if you found this helpful, if you have any questions about it, if you disagree with something, guys, go ahead and mention it in the comments. I want to hear. I'm up in the comments. I communicate with everyone in the comments. And if you want to talk to me directly, if you have messed up and if you have done something that has really put you against the wall and you need someone to talk to, reach out to me. I can help you. I have systems, I have training, and I have a lot of experience in helping men to overcome all sorts of sexually compulsive disorders. If you are in a relationship that is falling apart, if you're about to lose your marriage because of some of your sexual behaviors, reach out to me, let me help you. And if it's an emergency, it is free of charge. You just need to get on a call with me. There's a link to an application for an emergency. Reach out to me and I'll be happy to take care of you, okay? Take care, have a good day, and be happy.